The question is that this bill be now read a second time. I call the member for Durack.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. The Turnbull Government is building an innovative and sustainable economy for a safe and secure Australia. And this bill we're debating here today is a demonstration of the compassion by those of us sitting on this side of the chamber. Mr Deputy Speaker, I'm pleased to rise today to speak on the Narcotic Drug Amendment Bill 2016. Mr Deputy Speaker, this government is a progressive government, not only creating a more sustainable economy, but we're making Australia a better place to live. This bill will allow the cultivation of cannabis for medicinal purposes while remaining compliant with Australia's international obligations. To my constituents, I stress we are not legalising marijuana, we are allowing those who need to access cannabis to do so. And I think, Madam Speaker, it's worth repeating, we are not legalising marijuana, we are allowing those who need to access medicinal cannabis an opportunity to do so in a safe manner. Presently, there is this global shortage of legal product capable of being supplied through existing pathways under the Therapeutic Goods Act. So clearly we need to act to address this supply-side problem. Madam Speaker, so clearly I think this is an historic day in Australia's parliamentary history. For years, decades and indeed generations, people in this country have fought to legalise marijuana for medicinal purposes. For many families and friends, this bill is the missing piece in their relatives' or friends' journey in managing the impacts of serious health conditions. Conditions such as epilepsy, Crohn's disease and multiple sclerosis, as we heard from the very emotional speech from the member for Leichhardt, who outlined many very personal stories of people he has known to have had the opportunity, or would like to have had the opportunity to have used medicinal cannabis. So I do stand here today, a very proud member of the Turnbull Government, who have taken first steps towards this goal. And I'm assuming that we do count on bipartisan support for this much-needed legislative change. This measure will ensure when cultivation, production and manufacture of cannabis for medicinal purposes begin, that Australia will remain compliant with its international treaty obligations as defined in the Single Convention for Narcotic Drugs 1961. The bill provides that the Commonwealth will oversee all regulatory aspects of the cultivation of cannabis for medicinal purposes through a national scheme. This removes the need for states and territories to implement legislation to set up individual cultivation schemes and ensuring laws are consistent across Australia. Two types of cultivation licences will be available once this amendment passes. Firstly, one that allows for the cultivation of cannabis plants for the production of cannabis for medicinal and related purposes, and the other to authorise cultivation for research purposes related to medicinal cannabis. Madam Deputy Speaker, as a Member of Parliament, I do see that my duty is to ensure the safety of all Australians, not just to the people of my electorate in Durack. And I am concerned that because people are so desperate that they are currently accessing unsafe, illegal supplies of cannabis, which in many cases are administered by untrained, unqualified individuals, which exposes them to health risks, not to mention the possibility of prosecution. Madam Deputy Speaker, this measure will enable the domestic cultivation of cannabis for use in clinical trials, scientific research and other medicinal purposes. And I must repeat once again that this is not legalising marijuana. We are not and we will not. We will only be allowing those who need to access medical cannabis the opportunity to do so in a safe manner. Where the cultivation of cannabis is for production into medicinal cannabis products for supply to patients, these patients will be managed to ensure that the amounts of product manufactured are planned in advance and relative to proposed usage and do not exceed permitted manufacturing limits. Under this measure, Australia must report regularly to the International Narcotics Control Board, which oversees the implementation of the single convention on quantities of narcotics produced, manufactured and used, with a view to preventing stockpiling of raw material beyond national and global needs. These amendments are designed to ensure the Commonwealth is able to fulfil this obligation. And just so we're very clear, Madam Deputy Speaker, this measure will not override state legislation dealing with criminal activities associated with the cultivation and trafficking of cannabis. Madam Deputy Speaker, while this measure was not a 2013 coalition election commitment, I truly believe it does demonstrate that this government is not only listening to but is in touch with the needs of the Australian public. And I think it is worth noting that while those opposite had the opportunity to bring in the same reforms during a period of 6 years, they failed to do so, and I'm pleased that we're here today discussing its introduction. I would like to, in closing, acknowledge the hard work of Minister Ley, the Minister for Health, in getting this measure to the House, and I note that we will require state and territory governments to pass their own legislation, and I wish them all swift passage of their own legislation, and I commend this bill to the House.
Thank the member.